Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to a Transfer Market Metrics special. Ladies and gents, what a window it has been so far for the Reds. Wirtz has arrived, Frimpong, Kirkes, there are players galore. There's players that are going to improve the first team through the door. And yet, out of everything that's going on, you feel this is going to run all summer. That number 9, the striker position. Darwin Núñez needs to depart. Who will be coming in? And we're here not only to look at the runners and riders, we're here to rank them, challenge things, and see what we reckon. Now, Bart, I gave you a bit of a, unenviable task, is it fair to say, when analysing these three? Is some bits easier than others? Is that right?
Yeah. I think because we're trying to move to a point where we look at the whole package, right? I think that's a fair, because it's not as easy as saying this guy is clearly the best player, right? Because I actually think the player that both of us would want isn't on this list, just to put that out there. But so yeah, it was a bit hard because each one's got a little red flag that impacts your decision on which one you would have. So yeah, it's not an easy decision. Although I'm sure many will be like, no, it's clearly that guy. And I'm like, cool, that's your opinion. But if you look at the whole thing, each one's got an up and a down.
There are pros and cons. And as my 17-year-old niece told me the other day when she was talking about dating a boy, she identified red flags. And I'm not going to be funny, there might be a few red flags in some of these as well. So if you can see it on the screen, or if not, ladies and gents, these are the names, aren't they? As Florian Plettenberg tweeted the other day, 3 number 9s Liverpool are focusing on: Hugo Ekitike, Alexander Isak, and Victor Osimhen. And they seem to have been the 3 names that just won't go away. Unfortunately, one that has, as Bart's alluded to, is Julian Alvarez. I think a lot of us would have liked him, but that does seem to be on or off the docket. Even Fabrizio Romano tweeted sort of in the early hours of this morning, or was it yesterday, trying to work out where we are, about Liverpool are keeping tabs on Hugo Ekitike and trying to work out if he will be the move. But if it is, it will have to work late. And I've given Bart a bit of an unenviable challenge, and I'm going to prod and probe him on some of these. And I'm still not sure if anyone was to do the same to me, in all honesty. But with the 3 on screen, Osimhen, Ekitike, Isak, ranking them 3rd through to 1st in terms of which one we think Liverpool should be going for, and being clear on the full rationale and the red flags involved. And just for the reference, the chat panel, we're all going to disagree on this, probably up to a point. So we'll see what comes with this. But without further ado, and maybe to surprise some people, Hugo Ekitike is on the screen right now, Bart. Is he your bronze medal position as we sit?
As we sit now, yes. I think bronze and silver are quite close for me, as we'll go through the rationale. But at the moment, Ekitike is in the bottom position. If we do some performance stuff, and then we can look at the injuries, and then we can look at the package, right? I think that's a fair way forward, all 3. I think that's fair. Performance-wise, we've done this guy before. We've done it very recently, so I'm not going to go massively in depth, but we'll compare him to comparing to Isak, right? So if you look at his from an overall, you think, there's not a lot of difference there, right? There isn't a lot of difference on the wagon wheels, apart from Isak is he's got higher non-penalty goals, and he's got some progressive passes that are better. All right. And if you look at his typical F brief, TK has between the boxes, the only ones that aren't in the 90ths are progressive passes, pass completion, and passes attempted. But they're still in a range that we would expect from a forward. 70% pass completion for a forward. For us, in those positions, taking the risk is something we've chatted before about Moby. Diaz has been like, so it's not something you go, oh god, that's really bad. It's just is in and around. The stuff that's really interesting is progressive carries at 96th percentile. Yeah, take-ons, touches in the penalty box at 94th percentile. Progressive passes received, which means he's on the end of the good balls from the back. These are good things. The other bits to note of would be attacking wise. You have shots total is the 93rd percentile. Non-penalty goals is slightly down, which when we look at his with some of his other profile stats, that's probably one of the areas that you and I have discussed before about his actual ability to put the ball in the net is probably something which is a slight red flag. But everything else attacking wise is in a 90 or above percentile. Shot corrected actions, assists, those kind of things. Defensively, interceptions is his thing. Everything else is a grey or red, which is something that would need to be improved upon. But to be fair, I think we could say the same thing about all three of these options. The off-ball elements are things that our coaching setup will need to be looking at. Interestingly, when you compare him, it is forward similar. You got Dembele's at top. You've got a friend there, Isaac, down at 7th. You've got Thuram. You've got he's got Jota as well. So he's in that kind of mold of player, should we say? Just going through some of his body stats. I'll come back to that in a minute. But performance-wise, what I mean by the threat kind of areas that he generates are in the sort of left half space and the left wide drifting in. So that's not too similar to some other players we have, but it's not, it's okay. If we look at where he is receiving the ball, or in terms of his touch map, he is largely in zone 14 or in the box. And again, he does off drift out to that left half space. So those are his sort of positional elements. He's higher up the pitch than we're used to seeing Jota and Nunes, right? So that's a big tick. And again, I think you might see that profile for all three of these nines. All right, that's an improvement that the team are looking to do. In terms of involvement in threat production, for this particular game we looked at, it was just below 8% of the team's EPB. So it's not high, but it's not like low. Is he involved in the pass networks? Yes, some strong passes from the central areas. That's good, and some links with the wide. So he's not involved in play, right? He is involved in play, which is something that when we looked at Gyökeres, for example, he wasn't really involved with an overall network, okay? Looking at his zone 14 and wide passes, again, the left side dominant even is coming through on those areas. Off the ball, just to sign that one off, it's not really involved. I've been honest with you, that he's so low that he's not really forming a shape. You're like, this is his shape here, which is a dot, right? So that would be a slight red flag for a TK, okay, for his off the ball element and his performance side of it. If we look at where he is in terms of this is our old favourite understat, which we'll do for free. This season he's finished 8 goals under what he should have done. Yeah. So he scored 15, should have scored 23. Assist is bang on, right? So he should have got assisted 7.5 goals. He assisted 8. All right. So there's some, you can get into depth with it per 90, 0.79, 0.78. So, but he's underperformed by a bit. He's improved that because at one point he was double figures under, but he's improved slightly. All right. And then the other element to look at is injury wise. So 3 seasons worth of data. First season in playing football in the top level, probably 14 games missed. All right. The days isn't really that important. You can get some really misleading data. It's about how many games the guy actually missed, right? So 14 his first season and then 1 and 1. So he's fairly robust injuries wise. So that's a big tick for him. He's young. He could be profiled. I think you've got the details on his package, but I think you were saying, what was it, about 70 million once you change to euros? Is that about right for a transfer fee?
Yeah, there's been reports that Eintracht Frankfurt and Marcus Kroger weren't going to budge off 100 million euros, but there have been a number of reports that later in the window it goes, they would be looking down at sort of 90 million euros. So you're working down towards the 70 million mark, aren't you, when you get euros in Tesco around there?
That's not a bad, that's a high price point, should we say, for a kid of his age, but it's not. But you look at the wages. I mean, I've pitched him at around the Diaz level or Diaz Jota, which I think is about 120 a week or something. I'd say 120 a week, which is about 6 million a year. All right. So what you're paying out in wages, what you're paying out in fee, you're saving on wages considerably compared to the others. So in terms of that package and his injury package, there's some ticks there, right? The high transfer fee-ish, not as high as Isaac, but it's fairly high for a kid. You're not paying out a lot of wages. You can incentivize it, the hell out of it, in terms of, right, we'll give you more money if you score goals, yada, 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 and he's got low injuries. Performance, apart from that XG conversion into goals, where it's fair to say he has underperformed, there are other elements, assists, his areas around the box, his touches, exactly where we want it to be. He's involved in the pass networks and build up. There's some positives there, right? Off the ball, though, that would be an area of things that we've said before we would have to work on. So defensively and the fee are probably a couple of readies, should we say. And for me, that's why I put him third, because I could see him as need a bit of work to get his on the ball stuff up to where we need to do to convert that 800 to being par. I don't want him to overperform. I just want him to be par. And then the off ball stuff would probably need a bit of coaching. So that's why I rationally, in my head, put him at third in those three.
I can get that. I can understand that. And I suppose there are a few things just to expand on with having him third. Ultimately, and obviously from what you've said, he does actually have the shortest career for obvious reasons. Is only 22, but the best injury record, as in if you were to stack it just on an injury ratio, yes, I know we had the first bit in France, but since he's gone to Eintracht Frankfurt, as you said, we've only missed one game in each season. So that does stack him higher than Isaac and Oscar in terms of the injury point of view. But you almost don't want to be harsh because the kid has promise. You can't dispute that.
100%.
But the two things that stood out for me, as you've always said with the statistics, Bundesliga, it's knock 0.16 off, isn't it? It's 84% against the Premier League. You've got to build that into the metrics. And just at brass tacks as well, consider we've got Alisson, Salah, Van Dijk with 2 years who have to win now. He doesn't bring you right now like the other two do. Is that just a fair and honest assessment?
I think that's absolutely spot on. The bully thing is probably makes this conversion potentially even worse. Because if you take that into account, in the Premier League, that might be an even worse conversion. It could go the other way as well, but it could be even more. But I think you're spot on. We've got 2 years. We've just paid. Let's just round stuff up. We've just given £100 million worth of wages out on Van Dijk and Mo Salah over the next 2 years. We want to win stuff with that, right? So, and with Ali, who's on whatever he is on. That's why for me, I'm not sure, given you spent what you spent on Birch, you've got 2 fullbacks coming in who are exciting, promising player. I think to sign a project player, maybe that's a bit harsh, but you know what I'm saying, right? Someone who isn't guaranteed to do what you need to do in the 9, I think would be a little bit, that's why I put him third. I don't think that matches the profile of the rest of the signings.
No, it doesn't. And I get people will say that the kid's rapid. We know about his pace. I think over 35 km on the Bundesliga, the young promise. And actually, out of them all right now, very strange to say, probably more of an FSG signing, would you say, when people talk about Moneyball and value? He does actually feel, even though we've both got him comfortably third, as the one that could retain his value in the near future. Out of them all, realistically, but that doesn't cover now, does it?
No, it doesn't cover now. I think if you look at like the outlay they've put on they're going to extend Alisson, aren't they? They've got an option to go another year. You've just paid out on those 3 alone. There's no resale. You're basically going right 3 years, boom or bust. And I just, this guy probably would, because if you can fix his problems, which are fixable because he's a kid, right? You could have massive outlay. It's just not going to be next season, I don't think.
Yeah, and the differential in the Bundesliga, it's an easy call for me, actually. It doesn't mean he's a bad player.
No. He's a good player.
I still have almost a feeling that when the Isak stuff goes tits up, he might be the one they turn to. But we will see. We've put him third in our rankings.